I'm sure we've all wondered at one point or another whether Julius Malema will ever return to the ANC, and I don't think he would. I think he's got enough autonomy, he's got enough power um, for him not to need to be part of the ANC, right? And I think he's brought some good change. I mean, to be honest, all of us, we're hardly, I'm saying all because I know the youthful ones like me couldn't have cared less what happens in parliament until EFF entered parliament, right? And people were kicking out, they were dragged out, they were talking back, they were being undiplomatic. The EFF made us sit up and listen to what happens in parliament. They brought the excitement. I mean, prior to that, guys, the ministers were falling asleep while sitting there. It was just a mess. Like, it was a quiet mess. Like, they sat in parliament and we didn't know what they were talking about. It was so boring until the EFF came in and they caused all of that chaos, which is needed. I mean, in a democracy like ours, we need strong opposition. And it doesn't matter if you don't like the way that they do it, that they're rude and whatever, but there's some disruption that is always needed, and I appreciated the EFF for that. I don't think because of the power that Julius Malema has that he'll ever come back to the ANC. Yes, we can admit he does have issues in his camp. He's lost three powerful people in the past month or so. No, not in the past month or so. I think probably I can't remember when Shivambu came off because three people then left after two other people then left after Shivambu left. I mean, he's got issues in his camp. There's some arrogance that's there that we're hearing about, and him taking the people leaving very personally instead of trying to figure out why people are leaving and then working to make sure he creates an environment where people want to stay, right? That's what leadership is about. So as he heads off into the sunset as the EFF leader, I don't think he's ever gonna change. It's not even about his grandmother, as he's saying in this video. It's a matter of principle. It's like many of us when we leave our jobs. I mean, if we had a really rough relationship with a particular company, chances of coming back to that, especially if the same leadership is there that fuck off for you off, basically, um, chances are you're not going to come back. You will change. You might come back many years later if there's a change of leadership, there's a change of culture. But generally, we don't come back to environments like that. I mean, there are companies where you left on good terms and you liked the environment, but the pay wasn't there and you needed money for your family and you had a good offer and you left. Then there's a possibility that if you were ever offered a higher post because you liked the environment, you liked the culture, but they weren't paying you enough at that point in time, there were no promotions opportunities available, you would probably go back because there's no bad blood between you. You like the company, right? It's the same thing here. I mean, it's the same thing here, but here it's the other way around, right? And a lot has happened for Julius to just waltz back into the ANC, and the ANC hasn't actually changed. It has just become GNU'd, right? So, he probably won't come back. I think we all know that. And if he did, it would be a very interesting time in South African politics. Let's listen to what he has to say for himself and what President Ramaphosa has to say about it.
Well, he disagreed, of course, and he's one of those who said to me, hanging in there, this thing will come to an end very soon, it will self-correct, and let's continue. And every time I meet him, he will say to me, come back to the ANC, like Didi Mabuza, like many of them. Every moment they say to me, I must come back, but they've got a serious problem because even if I want to come back, my grandmother said I must never commit that mistake. So I have to choose between Gigi Mabuza and my grandmother, and I'll always choose my grandmother. They agreed on many points. The only problem is that he was saving a neoliberal state that will not make certain things possible. I mean, he agreed to nationalization of the Reserve Bank. He agreed to the establishment of a state bank. Sovereign fund was also firmly on his agenda, and that the land issue should be resolved. So that is the kind of a leader you will have at the forefront. A man who never speaks about tenders, a man who never speaks about committing corruption, because many of them, when you speak to them, in every aspect they see business opportunity, personal accumulation. He was not that kind, yet he was business minded and he knew where to do business and how to do business and always remained above board. And that is the kind of mentorship and leadership we take from him. Always avoided going there because I didn't want to eat the tin fish. But he was very strong about the land issue, about agriculture. But he was also very firm about remaining an ordinary person, because he will just leave Mahuba's Kloof and then come here in Kwankua, find a woman who's selling food on the street, sit there alone and eat the food from a woman who sells on the streets. He will interact in an ordinary manner with people of Zanin. And he's the kind that used to go out a lot. And he didn't mind to go out alone. You will find seated there alone with his glass of red wine, and he knows what must be paired with what. Don't get the tin fish confusing you. He had style, he knew nice food, he knew proper wine, and he could speak to it in such a way that you will even be tempted to want to drink wine, and that time you are drinking Corona. So that's a problem. That's how persuasive he was. He was a darling, he was a gentleman. He was someone that you always look up to meeting him. Always when that call comes, you know that you are going to have an informed conversation. Well, that was his character. He was a good human being, embraced everyone, especially some of us who come from his province. He never forgot to remind us that we are his homeboys. And when something wrong happens, he will take a phone and call you. And even when good things happen, he will take a phone and call you. We'll have long conversations. One of the conversations, because he wants to be so modest and so reasonable. When he became a minister of finance, he was refusing to have bodyguards. And I said to him, you're carrying our purse, and it's not going to be easy for you to just drive around, especially late in the evening from Pretoria to Mahuba's Kloof and all of that. So we had that kind of relationship. He will disagree vehemently and without being scared to express his view. And when the debate is over, you will remain friends and there is no hostility. So there was no way we will not come and bid a farewell to a person who was a gentleman. Comrade Tito was a human being who used to separate politics from personal relations. So he will disagree vehemently and very emphatically without being ashamed. And you will do the same to engage in a robust manner, but he will never declare you an enemy. He always knew that above everything else is humanity. And that's why we're here. We're here to bury a human being. We're here to bury a decent guy. And all decent people deserve to be given a decent send-off. And we wish that his soul must rest in a permanent peace.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Julius Malema is also here. I single him out. And bulabula here na hiku. Iwabumune la ya parliament. Uze abulabula swakahlenyana imina nkarunkwa. Nkarhi wo tala Moisa loyu u tolovele ku rhuketela vanhu na mina mara nkarhi loyu hayi u vulavule kahle swinene a ni khensa ku ri no president a ku khensa ku ri u tlo fa Comrade Tito Mbeweni an official funeral category 2 ara wara leboga le nna be ke mo leboga Sello Malema. Tito Mbeweni was particularly popular with the younger generation, and we had two of them speaking here on this platform. Who but Uncle Tito could have a chart-topping rap song titled with his name. Who but the Duke of Makhuba could share tips with 1.5 million followers on the best curry powder to cook a chicken with or fish with and impart economic education at the same time. He insisted that government must communicate with the people and on how the economy decisions that we take impact their lives. We will remember his aversion to a flashy lifestyle. Tito Mboweni wasn't just incorruptible. He wasn't just an avowed enemy of corruption throughout his life in public office. In time, we will look back at those social media posts of Tito defending his infamous brown shoes